you know, people can see through this, and people don't relate to perfection because nobody's perfect. So when they see something too polished, too neat, it's not attractive. They don't feel they can be the same.
Hey there, I'm Mags, also known as the Marketer Whisperer. If you've ever felt the doubts and pressures of leadership starting to sap your confidence and passion for this amazing job, then this podcast is for you. As a former marketer myself, I've lived through the chaos of consumer brands for over 16 years, so I do get what you're going through. And that's enough to leave any smart and driven marketer feeling like a burnt out version of their former self. But it doesn't have to be this way. So on this show, I'll be sharing pragmatic tips and also real stories to help you feeling confident, creative, and passionate about marketing leadership again.
Right, today on our session, we're going to talk about a couple of topics actually that I've received from marketing directors. So I've got 5 questions I'm going to try to answer today. The first situation is, our marketing team has been struggling to come up with fresh ideas for our upcoming campaign. We're basically relied on the same strategies and approaches for a while now, and our campaigns are starting to feel stale. How can we reinvigorate our creative process and generate more innovative ideas? Right. So it's actually really essential to get out of your comfort zone and explore new perspective when you want to find new ideas and being innovative. If you don't have an agency that helps you with that, you need to encourage your team to interact and engage in activities that stimulate that creative thinking, such as brainstorming sessions, attending industry events, and collaborating with cross-functional team. You might think that these innovative ideas need to come from the marketeers only because the sales can be quite disruptive in this conversation. In my experience, I've had the best innovative ideas when we thought about it as a group, as a cross-functional team. So we had marketeers, category, shopper marketing, sales, our supply chain champion, some people from our agencies, whoever was basically working on the brand from their own perspective and department. Why is it important? Because they too understand the consumer to some extent. They bring a different perspective and different eye to it. At the end of the day, they're not going to make necessarily the decision. You take all of these ideas from this workshop or brainstorming session to a core marketing group of people who will then filter out, the stuff that actually we can't do because we know that R&D isn't capable of producing this. This is a flavor we actually are not happy with or can't even produce at this stage. It's too expensive. The profit would be too low. So forget about this thing. That packaging is just unrealistic. All these things that from a marketing point of view that they may not know. The point is, during a brainstorming, ideating session, you need to have a blue sky thinking. There is no limits. Otherwise, it really constricts the creativity of people and you end up with poor ideas. So that's really important. I'm happy to do a session on tips and advices on how to run something like that. I've had an example from my lean days where every year we had to come up with a lot of innovations on the seasons. So we used to run a lot of those workshops. We even had like an illustrator as part of the day. And whenever some of the small groups were coming up with an idea, they would just talk the illustrator through it. And the guy had trained himself, to draw a gold bunny, a Santa, by hand. And he would just draw up what the packaging would look like. So it was a drawing, but a pretty good drawing that at a later stage, then you can take to a bunch of consumers. So I think we integrated that a couple of years later, a kind of a consumer check, which was very essential actually and good, useful, because I won't really share the details, but a year we came up with an idea we were really excited about, even I in marketing. And basically, I think we were just biased by the brand cues, the brand distinctive assets, and not taking the consumer enough in our journey. And when we, showed the concept in front of them, they basically rated it no go, the one that we were really excited about. So that reality check with the consumer is really key. I would also So this is also why I want to bring everyone. I would really encourage that. And so bring external experts, bring your packaging agency, key account manager to this session, because they will bring a view, some ideas about what's possible that you've never even considered before, the different options, because they have the expertise that you don't. And they're there for that. Bring consultant maybe to provide fresh insights and challenge your team assumptions. So I know your diaries are full of meetings and it's back to back. I've been there and it's awful. It really leaves very little time to think. But those days or half days are so, so important. They really bring so much value to your marketing plan. I hope this answered that. The other point I want to make is the one thing you can do in those workshops or brainstorming session is to think beyond your own category. So say you've got, I don't know, the product that you sell is a ready meal. Don't look at just your direct competitors for this session, but actually you look beyond what actually competes with your ready meal when people want to have a dinner, something. So is it, what needs does it answer? And what else is there to replace your ready meal? We sometimes think of our direct competitors, but we completely alienate other categories that have a play. You want to glue something, tape and glue are two competitors, in fact. But when you are in the, you've got, I don't know, the Prit glue stick, you're probably going to think of your competitors as the other glue sticks. In fact, tape is probably, or maybe a nail, or, anything that's going to, or maybe a paper clip. This is also one of your competitors. So you've got to think beyond the logical, obvious category that you play in. Your competition is much wider than that. And when you cast that net for that ideation session, you do find so many more ideas. You really amplify the power of your creative brains. So that's situation one. Situation two, from another marketing director, brand director this time. I recently took over the marketing team lead, and I'm finding it challenging to build rapport and trust with my team members. Some of them seem hesitant to voice their opinions or share their ideas with me. What can I do to create an environment where my team feels comfortable speaking up and contributing? Yeah, I've had that conversation with a few of you actually in the past couple of months. Building trust and rapport with your team of marketeers is absolutely crucial for you to be an effective leader for them and to take your brand to the next level. So you've got to, and actually, you've got to start actively listening to your team member, get to know them. If you are new, I don't know if you're new to the company or you've just stepped up to that position, you've got to understand their past. How did they get there, the good and the bad? What are their ways of working? Because they may not want to adapt to a completely new way of working if what was, so far happening is working. So be genuine in the way you're interested in them. Be genuine in listening to their ideas and hearing their concerns, and see how your ways of working can be combined with theirs. Find newly communication ways between you. Engage this communication by having regular forums. I don't know if you have one-to-one meetings. I've been amazed at the number of people I've talked to who lead a marketing team and do not have regular catch-ups set up in their diaries. And to me, this is a big problem, because the reason is that they're not that they don't want to talk to their team members, but they have so many meetings and they have to answer to very demanding senior leaders that they kind of postpone the one-to-ones, or they cancel them, or they just then decide that weekly is just too often, it's not going to work, so we're going to make them bi-monthly or monthly. That is not enough. They are your team. You rely on them for information. You need to support them. They need you more than the once a month kind of catch up. You can't just use the Teams chat to catch up with them. So have one-on-one meetings where you can hear their thoughts without them fearing being judged. The environment that you're going to set is going to be quite critical for that to happen. And the more regular you have them, once every 2 weeks might be also fine, depending on their level of seniority or what they're working on. You can both decide on the frequency and give it a try. See if every 2 weeks works. See if you have to have that more regularly. It doesn't have to be set in stone from the start. And lead by example. We always say that, but it's true. Be transparent, admit your mistakes, be vulnerable, share, where you feel maybe unsure or you don't know, within reason. But your team members will always feel more of a bond with you when they know you're human. I've seen this day in and day out when senior leaders just keep some kind of a shield and only show the perfect side. I'm in control, I know everything, and if I don't know, I'm just going to hide behind another speaker, or I'll ask someone else in the senior. People can see through this, and people don't relate to perfection because nobody's perfect. So when they see something too polished, too neat, it's not attractive. They don't feel they can be the same. The bond is really hard to create. I would also say have an honest chat about the past. So whether, I don't know if their previous line manager has left, is still in the company or has left the company, how their ways of working used to be before you came on board. What did they like about those ways of working? What did they dislike or wish would change? And how would you together like your ways of working to be? That's really important. So that can be done on a one-to-one basis. I would start even with that, so to get to know each of your team members, and then maybe finalizing this as a team during your monthly marketing team meetings. I hope you have also this set up, where you can decide, how you want them to look like. And don't forget, especially to be trust and the bond, to recognize and celebrate their contribution, their ideas, their success, and even them trying, even if they haven't succeeded in something, just the fact of trying and doing something. You have to recognize it both individually and as a team. That will create a sense of belonging and appreciation. And it doesn't have to be a massive speech. It can be, an email sent quickly after a presentation or some challenging question one of your team member has handled. It could be something said to them in a corridor. It could be something said on a conference call. You pick the moment, but don't let it go. Don't let it pass. 2 weeks, 3 weeks after a presentation has been done is a bit late. I don't want to say it's never too late, because it's always good to hear something you've done good, but when it's fresh, it's better. And it seriously doesn't have to take you a huge amount of time. I would even say if you're busy, some VPs that I talk to are so busy, they don't even take that time, but just a quick email. And don't talk about anything else but the achievement you want to highlight. Don't just say, well done on this presentation. By the way, I'm still waiting for the ROI report on the market share. Because that just make it short, punchy, impactful, highlighting what they've done that you really were impressed by and happy to see. And that's it. That's all you need to talk about in this message. I hope this helps. Right. Moving on to the third situation. Our marketing department has, that's a marketing manager here. Our marketing department has ambitious goals for the next quarter, but we're also juggling several long-term projects that require significant resources and attention. I'm quite concerned that focusing too much on the short-term objectives might cause us to lose sight of our strategic vision. What would be the best way to strike a balance between immediate priorities and long-term plans? Well, that's also quite a common challenge amongst marketing leaders, because achieving that balance between the short-term goals and the long-term strategic objective is a challenge for us. So this is not easy. We also have to fight with departments that do work more on a short-term basis, and some like us who really do care about the long term. We want, brand equity doesn't build overnight. It's built over a very long term, and you have to invest behind the brand in order to gain and to amplify your brand equity, improve it. So what I would say is to start by clearly defining and communicating your long-term vision. And if you don't have one, you've got to work on one. Your long-term vision for your brand, ensuring that your team understands how their daily tasks, their weekly setup contribute to that vision. It starts from there. They're clear on where we're heading, what's the destination, what are they doing every day that's going to help get there. The decisions we may make on a monthly basis for sales, promotion, or whatever, they may sound right in the moment because it's going to land a couple of, I don't know, thousands of pounds worth of turnover, and we need to close the gap before the month end, that kind of thing. That is good for the short term. However, it might be that we agree on a 50% off, promotion on these lines, but in fact, these lines have a high really premium, and we had decided a long time ago to never promote them. So that goes against the long-term vision, with my really, really simple example here. But make sure they have repeat it every single month when you have your marketing team meeting. It's just like marketing. Say it again, and repeat it once more. They need to embrace, agree, and follow that vision, that journey, so that they have it in mind, the memory phase. We've got to repeat the messages a couple of times until it really hits our brain. And you want them to be on the surface level whenever they have discussions with other members of the cross-functional team. Have you also prioritize your initiatives based on the impact and alignment with your strategic objectives? That is also a very good exercise to do. Again, gather your team or ask each of them to do that piece of exercise where they will just list everything they are doing. And you can use rating, you can use, infographics, or just visually working it out. How does that work with your strategic objective? How does each initiative contributes to us reaching the strategic objective that are set for 3 years or the next 5 years, right? The other thing is, do you regularly review and adjust your plans to accommodate changing priorities or market conditions? Sometimes we work on a 5-year plan, and that's great. That's really helpful for the entire company to work towards a common goal in the very far future. Farish future. Market conditions do change. Take COVID, for example, something you couldn't really plan back in 2019 if you were working on your 5-year plan. Has that changed the market conditions for your category, for your industry? Does that change the priorities that you've got? If so, adapt your plan. It's a plan, right? It is a plan. You should stick by it, but if the market conditions have changed and you think you need to adapt to them, then do so. It would be silly to stick to your initial plan just because of ego, or, it's okay to adapt. It's more than okay, in fact. And the last thing I would say is empower your team to make decisions. You would be surprised at how more responsible and professional and thoughtful they become when they have to make decisions that support both, the immediate short-term goals and the long-term objectives. They feel that pressure to get it right, which is what you do in your role every day, but they start to feel how that works, and that's really key. So celebrate when they're, making a decision that seems right to look after the immediate and the long-term objective. That will help them maintain motivation and focus in how they approach that. That's really key. One day they'll have your job, so you might as well prepare them to do it very well. Moving on to situation number 4 from another marketing director. Right. Despite having a talented and dedicated team, we've been experiencing high turnover rates within our marketing department. I suspect that some team members feel undervalued or unsupported in their roles. As a leader, what can I do to better engage and retain top talent? Right. Keeping your people in your team is essential for sustaining your success, in your organization, in your team, the reputation of your department in the company, and therefore the credibility that you've got and the influence you have over senior stakeholders and other groups of people that you work with. Let me just actually go back one step. There's one word you've said in your question that you've sent me, and I'm just reading it again. You said, I suspect. I'm going to read that sentence because to me as a coach, it's very interesting. I suspect that some team members feel undervalued or unsupported in their role. There's quite a bit of uncertainty here and assumptions. Suspect and the word or, undervalued or unsupported. So I'd really want to understand that piece with you. What have you observed? What makes you think this? And what have you done, or maybe not done yet, which I presume might be the case, to tackle that? So the fact that you suspect stuff, you're assuming something's going on, but you're not sure, suggests you haven't had those conversations with your team. You've got to have those conversations. You've got to create an environment that really helps create personal and professional growth. And I know sometimes it's really difficult to have those conversations with your team members on a one-to-one basis or even as a group. But if they have left, can you perhaps slow down? There might be reasons why you've missed out on a couple of clues. Either maybe you're new to the role and they've left. That's happened to me where I arrived into my head of brand role and 2 or 3 people, I think, quit in the first 2 to 3 weeks after I started. So I didn't take it personally because that would be a very quick decision to be made by a team member. It was basically because I think one of them said, you're the 5th manager we've had in 2 years. And I was like, holy crap, that's a lot to take for them. And they don't even know who I am yet. Am I going to be yet another one that's just not going to care about them, is going to be disappointed by the company and leave? And, so there's a lot of baggage that is really interesting to understand. So suspecting is not enough. As a marketing director, you really need to be curious. Not need even. I would really encourage you to be curious and understand what is going on so that you don't say to me, I suspect, but I know they feel undervalued, or I know they are unsupported or not supported enough. That's what they've said to me. So listen to their perspectives, to their views, for them to give you some pieces of feedback and facts to support it. I would also encourage you to provide regular feedback and coaching opportunities to help them develop their skills and advance their careers, or whatever it is that they want that they're not getting right now. Have you got one-to-one in place? I'm going back to that point, but because I've been quite surprised at the number of you guys who do not have them in place. Have you got them in place? Because maybe your team members are not having enough of chats like that in order to grow and actually share what's going on for them. Continue or start to recognize and reward their achievements. Again, both as an individual and as a team. So again, have a look, one-to-ones regularly with each and every one of them. Do you have monthly marketing meetings or bi-monthly, or that where you can put the spotlight on these achievements? So on an individual in front of the group, or on the group in front of the entire group. These things are not complicated. They don't cost much. They're just taking a bit of time to think about who and what you're going to say about who. And they go such a long. How can you integrate that into your one-to-ones as well? Another point is, but again, I don't know from your question whether your organization has a culture of a healthy work-life balance. It could also be that some of your team members, or all of them, struggle with working super late at night on a regular basis. The long days are just taking a toll on their health, on their social life, and they really just are discouraged because nothing is done about it. So how can you, if that fits with the company, and if not, that's a bigger issue, I would say, to tackle, but how can you encourage a healthy work-life balance, offering flexible work arrangements for some of them, or wellness program? some people may have also children. They may also like to go for runs because that's their outlet, to just be in movement and feel good, about themselves and inside of them. And this is important. How can you give them the time to go for a run at lunchtime or in the morning or after work? If they do finish at 9, I really struggle to think how they can actually enjoy running, or even just be able to kind of get a run in that late in the day. And lastly, I would talk about how can you cultivate a culture of continuous learning? Provide training opportunities if you can. You might have a discussion with HR to see if you've got some L&D budget, or maybe take it from your own budget if you can. How can you support professional development initiatives? And they don't have to cost money. Some of you that may listen to this may come from smaller organizations, from startups, or and you may not have access to this kind of money. So I've actually created and put a PDF that you can download for free on my website so you go on startingblockscoaching.com and it's under resources, free resources. And it's a PDF that has 20 ideas on how to create a learning culture within 4 marketeers. So really dedicated to your team, all tried and tested. I've either been a part of it or I've run them. So they're all known to me and they don't cost anything or not much. And they're really good fun. And you see a lot of results. Right, last question from another brand director. Lately, there have been some tensions and disagreements within our marketing team regarding the direction of our social media strategy. While healthy debate is always valuable, I'm concerned that these conflicts might escalate and negatively impact our productivity and team dynamics. How can I effectively manage and resolve these conflicts before they become so much more disruptive? Right. We can't avoid conflicts. They're inevitable, really. But we can be constructive if we manage them effectively and in a professional way. So the things I would say to you is to start by creating a safe and respectful environment. And again, here, it's not just the words you say, but it's also how you act. People can spot the difference so easily. You can say, we're, test and trial and errors are fine, they're part of life, we're not perfect and so on. But when a brand manager gets you a report where they've tried something a bit new and the results are awful, and you make them feel like they've made the wrong decision, all of what you've said in the past can be just erased. They're not going to believe your words, now that you've kind of acted that way and made them feel like they were actually inefficient and incompetent marketeers. They need to feel comfortable to express their concerns, their wants, their opinions, their perspectives. So you may disagree with the perspectives, and that's absolutely fine. They just need to know and to feel that they can share them. And that's a big hurdle I see across junior to more senior marketing leaders still. So having a roundtable discussion is to always establish the rules before you start. But don't put them on them. Ask to create the rules together, actually. How are we going to do this roundtable discussion? How do we want to behave? What do we want out of it? What everybody agrees to be and act like, so that everybody listens well. And there's always stuff you can put in place they're fun, but they're effective. Just like, okay, we're going to go around the table with what we think about that topic, that critical subject in our team. And I want us to not use yes, but, and instead we're going to say yes, and. There's another technique that is the 10%, so that you listen to the person who's talking. You repeat about 10% of what they say. So you basically kind of say, okay, you've said da 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 da. So it really forces you to listen. And then you add something onto it to improve. You've said that and I agree with that. And so it's the 10% and. And that's a really simple an effective way of getting everybody to listen very intently and being constructive and positive, even if they disagree with half of what the other person has said. I would also encourage active listening, like I said, but also seek to understand what's underneath the surface. What's the underlying reasons? What are the underlying reasons behind this disagreements? Is it really a completely different opinion on how we should tackle that approach? Are there two personalities that just can't stand each other? Do they have past experiences of mistrust, or I don't know, there's something there to understand at what level it is and what kind of nature of tension we're dealing with. Because in fact, the 10% or the yes but or whatever might be completely useless if in fact one gossiped about the other 2 years ago and they still hold a grudge, right? So the solution you're going to put in place will depend on your detective work to assess and suss out what is the nature of the conflict and disagreement, so that you can put in place a solution that's going to work. You can also try to look for common grounds and focus on shared goals rather than the personal agendas. That also works quite well. So you can, if necessary, facilitate a structured discussion or mediation if really you need to resolve the conflict. Again, depending on what the nature of the conflict is. Also, remember to highlight how collaborative they've been, how they've worked really together during that session, facing the one challenge. So that's highlighting how good they have worked as a group, listened to each other, respected one another's perspective, and show them that, how far they've come around. That's really important, because it's just like an agency when you tell them you hate their design or you like the design but not option A and not option B. They've got to know why option B wasn't good, but they also need to know how good they did for option A. Sorry. It's really the quality of the feedback is critical. So always be specific if you can. And lastly, that could also highlight the fact that your team identity hasn't formed yet. So I don't know if you're new to that team, if your team has been newly formed, if there's new members in the team, but also members that have been there a long time, and therefore there's disconnect or bonds that haven't formed yet. So it's always good to revisit these things by running it could be a half-day session. Part of your marketing team, you pick one during the year sooner rather than later, and you create a session around who we are as a team. So that can be really fun. It's a lot of personal development. It's a lot of getting to know each other. What do we want to achieve? How do we want to be and to behave in order to achieve that? The how is really important. What is our DNA? What do we represent? How do we want to come across to the other departments? How do we currently appear or come across? What's their perception of us right now? And what kind of perception do we want them to have in the future? So what do we need to do in order to get there? Those are amazing workshops and sessions. Again, they don't have to be very long if you don't have the time or the money for that, but they're really important. And I can help you, giving you some, starter for 10 or helping you run the session. I've done some, and it's the feeling of happiness, joy, bonding, and understanding at the end is amazing. Anyway, there we go. So I think that's it. I've gone through the 5 questions from brand and marketing directors. If you do want to send me more questions to answer, I've got another Q&A upon this wonderful community, and I'm going to endeavor to answer them and help you become stronger leaders, be confident without changing who you are, and to have on-the-job impact. So I shall see you very soon.
Thank you for joining me on another insightful episode of The Marketing Whisperer. If you found value in this episode, I'd be so grateful if you could leave a rating and a review on the podcast app of your choice. It really would help me reach more marketing leaders like you who could benefit from these insights in return. And I'd love if you would join upon my community of marketing leaders. All details are available on my website, startingblockscoaching.com. And lastly, if you're seeking one-to-one coaching, group workshops maybe for your team, leadership training, marketing expertise or career advice, basically everything that makes you a better marketing leader, feel free to get in touch with me on LinkedIn. Search for Magali Leroux. I don't know how else to pronounce it to make it easier. Speak soon.